Hello, everybody out there. You ready? We are about to talk about mistakes. Okay. And having fun with Snapchat filters because they're so much fun. All right. So tonight we have a late edition. Why is it late? Well, another mistake. Bad time management planning on my part. But I wanted to make sure that I had all of my notes, which I wrote and completely forgot to grab. So I am going to queue up the countdown and grab my notes so I actually have what I'm going to talk with you about. Ready? Here we go. Okay. Whew. Look at that. Whirlwind. Managed to grab my notebook and be back in time. So today we are talking about, oh, Addie's joining me. Addie's going to help out a little bit. So today we are talking about mistakes that I have made, and the big one around today around messaging. So I do have some notes here. So I'm actually going to own up here and say this is actually a little bit alien for me, because one of the big things that I preach is all about telling stories. And I looked back at some of our episodes and realized that, like I said, this feels a little alien sometimes, but I looked back and realized that sometimes I'm not actually telling enough stories, and stories matter. So, sad panda. Apparently this is just the Snapchat filter kind of fun. So stories are what attracts us. Stories are what attract people to us. That is the thing that really helps people to engage. And in looking back at all my stories, I've planned like one story for each one of the episodes. But then I get super focused in on the topic that we're talking about, and I forget to finish telling some more stories. So I think part of that comes back to having a really clear outline. And just making sure that I'm actually sticking to that. So there we go. Got my notes today, right? All right. So second is sometimes I discovered that having different guests on the show, while they are amazing and we love them, sometimes their subject matter does not necessarily line up with what it is that we are doing. So sometimes it's kind of like, okay, this is really, really, really cool. Totally digging it, but it doesn't exactly fit with all of my repurposing efforts and things that we're trying to target there. Another big mistake. I'm going to go through all of these and then kind of give you guys what we're doing about it, right? So another big mistake is sometimes love our writers. We need to have, like, keep them in love. But sometimes these sound bites or the quotes or whatever that we have some of our writers pull out, not the best. Not exactly some really juicy sound bites, not really super hooky, right? So those are things that that I definitely kind of want to make sense. Sometimes we go back and I look at, because we've developed a process that I create the initial content and then the system starts running and other people take over. And sometimes sometimes the sound bites are not super fantastic. So kind of leaves you like looking around going, well, I'm not sure if this is actually hitting and resonating, right? Okay, so, and okay, this is really fun. Sometimes a podcast is just a podcast. Now, you guys know when I started our podcast, I'm like, oh, this is the perfect vehicle to create all of the content repurposing and do all of the things. And yes, I super absolutely nerded out like a super nerd that I am. And sometimes a podcast is just a podcast and it doesn't necessarily make the best blog post. So those are some of the big mistakes. And I will say this, I'm going to actually put on a special Chroma Key here. Ooh, wow, look at that. I'm going to Smurfland, or like a Oompa Loompa. No, I'm the girl. What was her name? Veronica? Come on, guys, help me out. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the one that ate all the blueberry, or she turned into a blueberry. You know what I'm talking about, right? Anyway, totally what I feel like. So the biggest mistake that we made, or that I made, like huge mistake that I made through this entire thing. This is insane, you guys. So the biggest mistake is not testing the systems, because in every episode I talk about, hey, it's the Content Toolbox. Go visit the Content Toolbox and sign up for the resources. Go check out the Content Toolbox. Go get access to the vault. Go grab the free resources that are coming in from all of our guests and from all of the stuff that we're adding in there. Amazing concept. Wasn't working. I'm like, why are we not getting people actually opting in to our stuff? Like, there's some good stuff, and I have some really strong CTAs, right? So found out yesterday. You ready? This is a bad enough mistake that I need the crash helmet, because this one's pretty bad, pretty epic. So found out yesterday or the day before that the biggest call to action on our podcast, to go to thecontenttoolbox.com, did not actually work. Wasn't working. You could go there all day long and try to sign up, and it wasn't actually letting you in. So, gotta test those systems. Super important. Even Addie agrees. She's checking out her foot just to make sure. So there you go. My biggest mistakes, not just one, these are ones that we've learned from, not telling enough stories, that the guest episodes don't always line up with our subject matter. Sound bites are not fantastic. And sometimes a podcast is just a podcast. And the biggest one is that our CTA was not working. And so now, how am I remedying these things? All right. So, not telling enough stories. I am actually starting with some great outlines now for each of our solo episodes. And I make sure that I have my storyboard pulled up when I am working with guests, so that I can immediately be triggered by something that they said and pull a story out to be able to kind of help the story along. Secondly, the guest episodes, not always my subject matter. What we have now created in terms of our content repurposing is I'm still taking guests and letting them talk about what is their expertise. But we're actually targeting some topics now and kind of really helping. We're asking some very pointed questions to ask about, like, how are you activating your content? And really kind of honing in the questions. And then for those that still are not 100% resonating, we're actually using the blog to bridge that gap in between. So we're actually writing a much more in-depth blog that provides a lot more information. And then the podcast just becomes like a support vehicle for it. So they may not necessarily be 100% about the same topic, because typically people will come on and talk about multiple different things, right? So we want to make sure that you can show up like a donut. No. We want to make sure that we are lining up the topics of what our guests are talking about to still providing value information for things that are still in alignment with our products and programs. Sound bites not being fantastic. We're actually solving that problem by narrowing down the services or the writers that we are using and focusing more time on training for them. And sometimes a podcast is just a podcast. This we're actually solving with the same way that we're building the SEO bridge for the guests. And that's totally fine, because sometimes a podcast is a podcast, but it doesn't mean that we can't pull out some great information and provide additional value. And then finally, our CTA not working. Now we actually are setting up a quality control measure to go through all of our links on our website and constantly kind of checking those once a month and making sure from our stats that we're checking each week that things are actually working and have not stopped. So, I feel like I need to be a pickle for this because those are a lot of mistakes. But we also have learned amazing things from them, like how to dance like a pickle, because that is an important thing to know. So, what does all this help us and tell us? This tells us that we've learned a lot over the last year. Absolutely. So, learning a lot. What have I done with that information? Well, I have put it together into a Cliff's Notes version because I'm just that cool. Yep. And I'm sharing the Cliff's Notes version with you. So if you go to, see, I should have totally done this again, right? Let's see, let's do this. Top tips. Let's show this one. If you go to thevirtualjen.com/top tips, you can get the top 10 content tips ebook. This is actually a virtual guide that we've put together here. We literally took the top 10 of our episodes and which ones have been published out on our blog post. And we looked at between traffic to the website and between downloads to the podcast. We said, okay, these are the top 10 episodes. And so in here, we've actually included some great information on these stories. Each and every episode has the Cliff's Notes version of an infographic that you can go grab. We also are including a link directly to the blog or a link directly to the YouTube video. This is an epically amazing guide. Literally the best of the best of the best, right? Our top 10. This one right here, love this. This is our content activation formula. So this infographic right here alone and this episode can literally help you set up your entire content marketing formula. All right, so make sure that you go check out thevirtualjen.com/top tips and go grab this because this is a super helpful guide. And all of the things that we have learned, the mistakes that I just mentioned here in messaging, are covered in some way in these top tips, including like the things that we learned and getting back around them, right? So this is a handy guide. Trust me, from what took us a year to learn a lot of these things, we are putting all of this together. And so it's a super quick reference for you. And you can just come in and nerd out. Oh, you can't hardly even see me, right? Here we go. Let's make me a little bigger. Let's put the nerd glasses on. Or we can go like super black and white chroma nerd here. But trust me that you're going to want this information because it's literally like we made some epic mistakes and spent a lot of money. These are things that you want to learn from our mistakes. So it's pretty awesome. Go check it out. virtualjen.com/top tips. And tomorrow I will be talking about, what am I talking about tomorrow? Tomorrow is Wednesday. Ooh, good one. I'm going to be talking about the top mistakes that we made around automation, which, by the way, are a lot. I gave you a preview with the CTA opt-in not working for the Content Toolbox, but go test it out now. You can go check out the Content Toolbox. Here it is, and go get access to the vault. So awesome. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. I will see you tomorrow where we're talking about automation mistakes. Till then, keep nerding.